My name is Audrey Thompson. I'm 32 years old, a meticulous financial planner, and the one who always paid. Last Saturday, I stood alone at the Willow Creek Garden Resort, a sprawling $3,000 a day venue I'd meticulously booked and paid for our annual family reunion. The air, typically alive with the expected sounds of laughter and reunion, was eerily silent, save for the distant chirping of unseen birds. The meticulously arranged tables, adorned with custom-placed settings and personalized favors, gleamed under a sun that felt strangely indifferent to my mounting despair. The clock on my phone ticked past 11 a.m., then 11:30, then noon. No one came. No one called. Finally, an hour and 45 minutes late, my mother's SUV pulled into the vast, empty parking lot. She emerged, a plastic container clutched in her hand, a wide, casual smile on her face, and laughed. "We decided to have the gathering at your sister's place instead. We brought you some leftovers." The words, delivered with such effortless, thoughtless cruelty, felt like a physical blow. I forced a smile, the muscles in my face protesting, while something cold and fragile deep inside me finally, irrevocably, snapped. Before I tell you what happened next, what seismic shift this seemingly small act of casual disregard triggered, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I'm curious how many of you have felt the sting of this particular brand of family neglect. And subscribe if family drama hits close to home. If you, too, have walked the tightrope of expectation and resentment, constantly giving, rarely receiving, until something inside you gives way. Join a community that understands the quiet agony of being taken for granted by the very people who are supposed to cherish you most. Being the middle child in the Thompson family has always meant one thing, a quiet, unspoken truth that permeated every aspect of my existence: responsibility without recognition. At 32, I've spent my entire life sandwiched, quite literally, between the poles of my family's attention. My older sister, Grace, 35, and my younger brother, Kyle, 28. Grace, with her effortless charm and innate ability to command attention, has always been the golden child, the radiant sun around whom our family orbited. Her accomplishments, whether it was winning a local dance recital as a child or landing a prestigious internship in college, were celebrated with elaborate parties, overflowing with expensive gifts and effusive praise. Each milestone was a public spectacle, a testament to her undeniable brilliance. Kyle, on the other hand, as the undeniable baby of the family, existed in a perpetual state of excused innocence. He could, quite literally, do no wrong. His mistakes, no matter how egregious or costly, were always brushed aside with a dismissive laugh and an indulgent smile from our parents. A broken lamp? Oh, Kyle will be Kyle. A failed exam? He just needs to find his passion, bless his heart. He existed in a protective bubble of parental indulgence, shielded from the consequences that seemed to follow Grace and me like shadows. Then there was me, reliable Audrey, the one who would always step up when needed, the first call for a favor, the last thought for appreciation. The one who would always pay, quietly and without complaint. The one who would always, inevitably, be taken for granted. It was a role I'd unwittingly slid into, a pattern that started early, so subtly that I barely noticed its insidious creep until it had fully defined my place within the family constellation. When we were kids, if something broke in the house, a shattered vase, a cracked window, a mysteriously malfunctioning appliance, I'd be the one paying for it out of my meager babysitting money, even if it was undeniably Kyle who had caused the damage. "You know, your brother doesn't have any money," Mom would say, her voice soft, persuasive, designed to appeal to my nascent sense of duty. "And you're so good with money, Audrey. So responsible." The words, initially meant as praise, quickly became a subtle form of coercion, a veiled command. By the time I was 16, a budding financial savant, meticulously tracking my meager earnings, I was already contributing to household bills, quietly footing the tab for things no teenager should be responsible for, while Grace, 2 years my senior, received a brand new car for her birthday, a shiny, symbolic gesture of her elevated status. The inequity was a dull ache I learned to live with, a constant hum beneath the surface of our family life. As adults, the pattern only intensified, calcifying into an unyielding expectation. Last Christmas, a few years prior, I paid for an elaborate family vacation to Colorado. The entire cost, airfare for six, a sprawling cabin rental nestled in the snow-capped mountains, even ski lessons for Kyle's two small children, came solely from my pocket. Grace, in return, brought some store-bought cookies she'd vaguely baked. Kyle showed up with his considerable appetite and an endless stream of complaints about the cabin not having a hot tub, despite its luxurious amenities. Neither offered to contribute financially, not even for their own personal expenses. When I tentatively hinted about splitting costs, a desperate, almost silent plea, Mom would swiftly change the subject, her eyes darting away, an invisible wall erected between us. Dad, meanwhile, would simply stare intently at his phone, his silence a tacit endorsement of their blissful ignorance. For Mom's 60th birthday last year, a milestone I genuinely wanted to celebrate, I organized and paid for an elaborate party at her favorite upscale restaurant. It was a truly extravagant affair. 50 guests, a top shelf, open bar that flowed freely, a custom-designed cake that replicated her favorite garden gazebo, and a professional photographer to capture every fleeting moment. The works. The final bill, a staggering sum that made my meticulously managed spreadsheets wince, came to over $4,000. Grace, ever the showman, took undeserved credit for the centerpieces she'd ordered online for a paltry $50, casually mentioning her contribution to anyone within earshot. Kyle showed up an hour late, his presence an afterthought, clutching a hastily purchased generic card. During the heartfelt speeches, where family members recounted cherished memories, neither of my siblings thanked me, not once, for organizing everything, for bearing the entire financial and logistical burden. Mom, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant, simply thanked the family for such a wonderful celebration, her gaze sweeping over everyone but me. The sting of invisibility was sharper than any spoken slight. My success as a financial planner, the very profession I'd chosen precisely because of my innate aptitude for money management, had somehow become another weapon wielded against me, another justification for their parasitic behavior. When I was promoted to senior financial advisor last year, a significant career achievement that should have been met with genuine pride, Grace rolled her eyes and, with a dismissive wave of her hand, said, "Well, we can all be obsessed with money, Audrey." This coming from the woman who regularly, shamelessly, asked me for loans she never repaid, a growing ledger of unfulfilled promises in my mental accounting. Meanwhile, Kyle's part-time job at a sporting goods store, a casual, low-stakes endeavor, was lauded by my parents as him finding his passion, a heroic pursuit of self-fulfillment. My parents beamed with pride, their chests swelling, when he was named Employee of the Month, a small, local recognition, but barely acknowledged when I was featured in a prestigious financial magazine, a national spotlight on my expertise. The disparity was stark, a constant reminder of my unappreciated efforts. I paid my own way through college, clawing my way through 4 grueling years with student loans that felt like a permanent weight, juggling 3 part-time jobs, and adhering to a strict, almost monastic budget that allowed me to barely survive while earning my finance degree. It was a struggle, a testament to my grit and determination. Grace, by contrast, dropped out after 2 years, declaring it too stressful, a casual dismissal of the academic grind. And my parents, without a second thought, paid for Kyle's entire education at a private university, a lavish, no-expense-spared investment. He changed majors 4 times, meandering through various disciplines, and took a leisurely 6 years to graduate, accruing debt that was theirs, not his. When I tentatively mentioned the glaring disparity once, the injustice too large to ignore, Mom simply waved her hand dismissively. "You didn't need our help, Audrey. You've always been so independent, so capable." Her words, once again, repurposed as a justification for their lack of support, a perverse compliment. My best friend, Leah Martinez, has witnessed this insidious dynamic for years, her keen eyes missing nothing. We met in college when we both worked at the campus coffee shop. Kindred spirits united by the grind of earning our own way, and she's been my unwavering rock through every family disappointment, every stinging slight. Your family treats you like an ATM, she told me last month, her voice tight with frustrated anger, after I'd quietly paid for Dad's surprise birthday dinner, a surprise only to him, as I had orchestrated and funded the entire event. They press a few buttons: guilt, obligation, family duty, and out comes the cash. I knew she was right. Her words echoed a truth I'd long suppressed. But breaking family patterns, deeply ingrained and emotionally charged, is harder than it sounds. It requires a reckoning, a willingness to shatter a fragile peace. One day they'll push too far, Leah warned, her gaze serious, almost prophetic, and you'll finally say enough. Despite everything, the annual family reunions mattered to me. They were more than just gatherings. They were a legacy, a sacred tradition started by my beloved grandmother, Eleanor, before she passed away 5 years ago. Grandma Eleanor was the only one in my family who seemed to truly see me, to appreciate my unique qualities. She would whisper, "You're my practical girl," with genuine admiration, her eyes twinkling, rather than as a subtle way to extract more help or money from me. The annual gatherings were her enduring legacy, a testament to her belief in the unbreakable bonds of family, and keeping them going felt like keeping a part of her alive, a way to honor her memory. Each year, I held on to a sliver of desperate hope that this would be the time my tireless contributions were finally valued, my relentless efforts genuinely appreciated. Each year, I was met with disappointment, a familiar ache that I had learned to internalize. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for this year's betrayal, a blow so profound it shattered the very foundation of my hope. The planning for this year's Thompson family reunion began 3 months ago, a casual, almost innocuous message in our family group chat, aptly named Thompson Family Circle. Mom, ever the instigator of grand plans, she rarely executed herself, kicked things off with her usual effusive enthusiasm. It's time to start planning our annual reunion. Who's taking charge this year? Before I could even respond, before I could weigh the familiar burden of responsibility, Grace chimed in, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Audrey should do it. She's so good with details and planning. Kyle, quick to follow his sister's lead, added his endorsement, his response laced with a casual, almost mocking indifference. Yeah, financial planners are organized, right, sis? You got this. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the keypad. Last year, I'd handled everything, every painstaking detail, and received little help or appreciation in return. The memory was a bitter taste in my mouth. But then, Grandma Eleanor's voice, warm and reassuring, echoed in my head, a gentle whisper from the past. Family matters, Audrey. Keep them close. So I agreed, pushing down the familiar swell of resentment. I'll coordinate, I wrote, each word a concession. But can we discuss splitting the costs this year? I was thinking we could divide everything equally between the adults. The silence in the chat was deafening, a palpable void where immediate replies usually buzzed. 3 hours later, Mom finally responded, her message carefully skirting the financial elephant in the room. Let's figure that out later. First, let's decide on a venue. That later never came. It was a familiar tactic, a subtle deferral that always translated to Audrey will pay. Over the next few weeks, I suggested cost sharing multiple times, subtly, then more directly, but my messages were either completely ignored or met with vague, non-committal responses. Money's a bit tight right now, Grace would say, despite her recent social media posts flaunting a new designer purse that easily cost more than a family contribution. I'll contribute what I can, Kyle would promise, a well-worn phrase that historically meant absolutely nothing. I started researching venues, meticulously creating a detailed spreadsheet with multiple options and projected costs, which I diligently shared with everyone, hoping the transparency would prompt some financial responsibility. The responses trickled in, filled with preferences and specific demands, but not a single offer to help financially. Dad wanted somewhere with fishing nearby, a quiet spot for his hobby. Mom insisted on a place that could accommodate her gardening club friends who always, inexplicably, joined for part of the day, transforming our family reunion into a casual social mixer. Grace, predictably, wanted somewhere Instagram-worthy, with good lighting for her carefully curated social media presence. Kyle, ever focused on his children's entertainment, asked for a location with activities for his kids, a playground or a game room. After 2 weeks of exhaustive searching, countless phone calls, and late-night browse, I finally found Willow Creek Garden Resort. It was undeniably perfect. A beautiful property with sprawling, meticulously maintained gardens for Mom and her friends, a serene fishing pond for Dad, numerous scenic spots bathed in ideal lighting for Grace's inevitable photo shoots, and a fantastic playground for Kyle's children. It was, however, expensive. A flat fee of $3,000 for the day, not including food or decorations. This place looks amazing. Grace gushed in the group chat when I shared photos, her enthusiasm oblivious to the financial implications. The kids will love it, Kyle added, his approval instantaneous. It's exactly what I envisioned. Mom wrote, her words tinged with approval. Your grandmother would have loved it. Not a single person asked about the cost. Not one. When I tentatively mentioned the price again, carefully, almost apologetically, and once more suggested sharing expenses, the conversation abruptly, seamlessly, shifted to menu preferences, a practiced diversion. Grace's husband, suddenly, conveniently, developed a gluten intolerance. Kyle's kids, notoriously picky, wouldn't eat anything green or mushy. Mom, of course, wanted her favorite lemon chicken dish from a specific, expensive caterer across town. The requests piled up, each one adding another layer of expense, another silent obligation. I spent my lunch breaks, normally reserved for quiet contemplation or personal errands, calling vendors, haggling prices, comparing quotes, and my evenings were consumed by comparing catering prices, endlessly scrolling through menus. I even took a full day off work, sacrificing precious vacation time, to drive to the venue and meet with the manager, Emma, a kind, efficient woman who was visibly impressed with my detailed planning. Most families argue about these decisions, she remarked, her voice genuinely admiring. You seem to have everything handled perfectly. If only she knew. If only she knew the quiet battles I waged, the countless requests I swallowed, the invisible weight of responsibility I carried. The shopping trips began a month before the event, a relentless procession of errands that drained my bank account and my energy. Personalized place settings, each meticulously printed with everyone's names and a meaningful photo, a childhood memory, a proud achievement, a shared moment. Custom party favors commemorating Grandma Eleanor, small, thoughtful tokens of her legacy. A professional photographer booked to capture the day, every fleeting smile, every casual interaction. Special dietary compliant dishes for everyone's suddenly specific and often changing food requirements. The costs mounted, each purchase accumulating silently, relentlessly, all on my credit card. My careful financial planning, usually so robust, felt stretched thin, nearing its breaking point. 2 weeks before the reunion, I sent a final confirmation message to the family chat, a desperate, final attempt to prompt some contribution. Everything's set for Saturday, June 10th, at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Arrival time is 11 a.m. I put down all the deposits and payments. It would really help if everyone could contribute something toward the costs, which are currently at $3,274.56. My message, clear and direct, hung in the digital air. Mom replied with a single heart emoji, a meaningless gesture that conveyed nothing but casual dismissal. Grace sent a thumbs up, equally devoid of commitment. Kyle didn't respond at all. Dad called me that evening, his voice warm, oblivious to my mounting frustration. The venue looks great, sweetheart. Mom showed me the pictures. We're all looking forward to it. Dad, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice even, I mentioned splitting the costs. It's quite expensive, and I've covered everything so far. Oh, you know how things are, he said vaguely, his voice laced with practiced deflection. We'll figure something out. Your sister just had to buy new tires and Kyle's hours got cut at the store, but we appreciate you handling everything. You're so good at it. The conversation moved on, as it always did, smoothly, effortlessly, whenever money was mentioned. It was a well-rehearsed dance, and I, the perpetual giver, was always the one left holding the bill. The night before the reunion, a restless, anxious energy kept me awake. I stayed up late, meticulously preparing the final touches, each action imbued with a desperate hope. I wrote heartfelt cards for each family member, pouring my sincerity onto the page, attempting to communicate the love and effort I was putting into this. I created a slideshow of family photos dating back to Grandma Eleanor's childhood, a nostalgic journey through happier times, a visual reminder of what we once were, what I hoped we could be again. I packed cooling containers for the catered food I would pick up in the morning, envisioning a perfect day. I was exhausted, bone-weary, but a fragile hope flickered within me. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time they would see how much I cared, how much effort I put into it. I received multiple messages that evening, confirming attendance, each one a small validation, a glimmer of reassurance. Grace asked if she could bring her new boyfriend along with her husband and kids, a last-minute addition that meant recalculating food portions in my head. The more the merrier, I replied, pushing down the sigh that threatened to escape. Kyle confirmed he'd be there with his 3 children, but mentioned his wife wasn't feeling well, a subtle hint that she might not show. Mom sent a message asking if I remembered her friend Diane from her garden club. She's so looking forward to it. I fell asleep. Finally, surrounded by reunion materials, my alarm set for 6 a.m. to ensure I'd have ample time to pick up the catering, deliver it to the venue, and set up every detail before everyone arrived at 11 o'clock. I had no idea that while I was meticulously preparing for a perfect family gathering, a testament to my enduring love and dedication, my family had already made other, secret plans that deliberately excluded me. My alarm jolted me awake at 6 a.m. sharp on Saturday morning, its insistent beep a summons to duty. Despite having slept only 4 hours, a mere fraction of what I needed, I felt energized by anticipation, a nervous flutter in my stomach. Today would be different. Today, my family would finally see and appreciate all that I do for them, all the invisible labor, the unspoken sacrifices. I showered quickly, the hot water a brief, soothing comfort, and dressed in the new outfit I'd bought specifically for the reunion, a sky-blue dress that Grandma Eleanor, with her eye for understated elegance, would have loved. Its gentle fabric flowed around me, a silent promise of a good day. At 7 a.m., I was out the door, the cool morning air a crisp contrast to the warmth of my rising hope, headed to Angelo's catering to pick up the carefully ordered food. Mom's favorite lemon chicken, Dad's preferred ribeye steak, Grace's gluten-free pasta, and a mountain of chicken fingers for Kyle's notoriously picky kids. I'd even remembered vegetarian options for Grace's new boyfriend, whom I'd never met, a small detail I'd painstakingly ensured. Big event today? Angelo asked, his voice booming with cheerful curiosity as his staff efficiently loaded the carefully packaged, aromatic food into my car. Annual family reunion, I replied, handing over my credit card for the staggering $845.67 bill, my latest financial sacrifice for the family. 18 people. They're lucky to have you organizing it, he said with a kind smile, a genuine warmth in his eyes, his words an unexpected balm to my weary spirit. By 8:30 a.m., I arrived at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Emma, the venue manager, greeted me warmly, her smile reassuring, and helped me unload the catering trays, their weight a physical manifestation of my efforts. The place looked even more beautiful, more serene than during my previous visits. The sprawling gardens were in full, vibrant bloom, a riot of color and fragrance, and the staff had arranged the tables exactly as I'd requested, with a spectacular pond view that I knew Mom would absolutely adore, a perfect backdrop for family photos. "You're incredibly organized," Emma commented, her voice filled with genuine admiration, as I began setting up the personalized place settings, each one a testament to my meticulous attention to detail. Each family member had a custom place card featuring a meaningful photo: Mom holding her first grandchild, a tender moment frozen in time; Dad with his prized fishing catch, a wide, triumphant grin; Grace at her dance recital, poised and elegant; Kyle scoring the winning goal in his high school soccer match, a moment of youthful triumph. For the grandkids, I'd included their whimsical artwork, small, colorful drawings that added a touch of innocence. No detail had been overlooked, no effort spared. By 10:30 a.m., everything was perfect. The food was keeping warm in the catering trays, their delicious aromas filling the air. The slideshow of family photos was queued up on the projector I'd rented, ready to evoke nostalgia and warmth. The photographer was scheduled to arrive at 11:15, after everyone had settled in, ready to capture the joyous moments. I sent a quick message to the family group chat, a final, hopeful ping. "Everything's ready at Willow Creek. Can't wait to see everyone soon." No one responded. At 11 a.m., I sat at the main table, a beautifully decorated centerpiece in an empty room, smoothing my dress and checking my phone, the screen a blank mirror reflecting my growing anxiety. No messages. Perhaps they were driving and couldn't text. By 11:30 a.m., the photographer, a professional accustomed to punctual events, had arrived, his camera clicking almost nervously at the beautiful but vacant venue. Still, no family members had shown. I called Mom's cell phone. No answer. I texted Dad. No response. I called Grace, then Kyle. Both calls went straight to voicemail, a chilling silence that spoke volumes. At 11:45 a.m., a prickle of genuine fear tracing its way up my spine, I sent another group message, a desperate plea for information. "Is everyone okay? We're all set up and waiting at Willow Creek." Kyle finally responded at noon, his text infuriatingly casual. "Oh, is that today?" Grace texted seconds later, her message equally dismissive. "Running a bit late. Traffic." I felt my first real twinge of serious concern, a cold dread blossoming in my chest. The carefully catered food would only stay good for so long. The venue was booked until 6 p.m., a costly ticking clock. The photographer, a silent, disapproving presence, was charging by the hour, already snapping pictures of the empty tables and the beautiful but vacant resort, documenting my abandonment. At 12:30 p.m., Mom finally called, her voice light, casual, utterly devoid of concern, as if she were simply checking in, not delivering a crushing blow. "Audrey, honey, didn't you get our messages?" "What messages?" I asked, my voice thin, strained, barely a whisper. "No one told me anything. We're all waiting at Willow Creek." My voice caught, a sob threatening to escape, as I looked around at the empty tables, the silent, mocking perfection of the deserted venue. "The photographer is here. The food is getting cold." "Oh dear," Mom said, but she didn't sound particularly concerned, her voice a superficial ripple on a calm surface. "There's been a change of plans. Grace offered to host at her house since it's closer for everyone. We're all here now. We tried to reach you." The background noise told the story her words didn't, a cacophony of casual betrayal. Distant laughter, upbeat music, the unmistakable sounds of a party in full swing, a celebration I was excluded from. "You're all at Grace's?" I struggled to comprehend what she was saying, my mind refusing to accept the brutal reality. "Right now? The entire family?" "Yes, honey. It was a last-minute decision. You know how these things happen." Her casual tone twisted the knife deeper. I checked my phone again, frantically, desperately. No missed calls, no text messages, no emails about any change of plans. Nothing. I checked repeatedly, obsessively. My phone was silent, a black hole where crucial information should have been. "I've been here since 8:30, setting everything up," I said, my voice shaking, barely holding back the tears. "I paid for this venue months ago. I've been planning this for weeks. You all confirmed yesterday." "Well, these things happen," Mom repeated, her voice dismissive, devoid of empathy. Grace decided it would be easier for everyone to meet at her place. You know, her house has that new pool area she's been wanting to show off. More laughter erupted in the background, a cruel, mocking soundtrack to my humiliation. I heard Kyle's voice call out something unintelligible, followed by more laughter, a chorus of carefree indifference. We'll save you some food, Mom added brightly, as if she were offering a grand gesture. In fact, I can bring you some leftovers. Where are you again? The casual dismissal of weeks of my meticulous planning, the utter disregard for thousands of dollars of my money, left me speechless for several agonizing seconds. The very air seemed to leave my lungs. Willow Creek Garden Resort. I finally managed, the words hollow, echoing in a vast, empty space. The place I've been telling everyone about for months. Right. I'll stop by with a plate for you, though. It might be an hour or so. We're just about to cut the cake. Cake? They even had a cake for the reunion that I had planned, that I was supposed to be hosting, a cake for a celebration from which I was deliberately, cruelly excluded. I ended the call, my hand trembling, and sat alone at the large, beautifully decorated table, the silence deafening, the perfection mocking. The photographer, a silent witness to my abandonment, approached tentatively. Is everything okay? Should we wait a bit longer? I looked at my watch. It was nearly 1 p.m. No, I said quietly, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. No one is coming. You can go. I'll still pay you for the full time, of course. After he left, his footsteps fading, leaving me truly alone, I spoke with Emma, the venue manager, about the devastating situation. Her eyes filled with genuine sympathy as I explained that my family had changed plans without telling me. She helped me pack up the untouched food and decorations. Her kindness a stark contrast to my family's casual cruelty, refusing to charge me the full amount for the venue despite their strict policy. Keep the difference, I insisted, feeling numb, my voice barely a whisper. It's not your fault my family didn't show up. I was loading the last of the decorations into my car, the setting sun casting long, mocking shadows across the empty resort. When Mom's SUV pulled into the parking lot at 2:45 p.m., its presence a final, bitter irony. She emerged, still holding a plastic container, her hair slightly damp from what I assumed was time spent in Grace's new pool. There you are, she called out cheerfully, as if I was the one who had been missing, who had caused the disruption. We had such a lovely gathering. Grace's new landscaping looks incredible. You should see what she's done with the backyard. She handed me the container of leftovers, a jumble of mismatched food items thrown together without care, a symbolic offering of scraps. We missed you, but everyone understood you were busy with. She waved vaguely at the grand, empty venue behind me, dismissively sweeping away weeks of my effort. All this, as she stood there, smiling, as if she'd done me a profound favor by bringing scraps from a party I was supposed to host, a party I had paid for, something deep inside me finally, irrevocably, broke. The accumulated weight of years being taken for granted, of being used as the family ATM while receiving nothing but crumbs in return, came crashing down with the force of a tidal wave. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, an eerie, profound calm settled over me, a strange clarity that cut through the haze of hurt. Thank you for the leftovers, Mom, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, devoid of emotion, placing the container carefully in my passenger seat as if it were a fragile, precious thing. I need to get going now. Aren't you going to come back to Grace's? Everyone's still there. Kyle set up the badminton net. Her voice was a mixture of surprise and mild irritation. No, I said simply, the single word a quiet declaration of war. I don't think I will. As I drove away from Willow Creek Garden Resort, leaving the beautiful, abandoned venue behind, the container of leftovers on my passenger seat felt like a bitter symbol of every time my family had taken from me, while giving scraps in return. The digital receipt from the venue payment glowed on my phone screen. $3,274.56. Money I would never get back. But perhaps, just perhaps, this time the painful lesson was worth the cost. The drive home was silent, utterly devoid of the usual background noise. No radio, no calls, just the hum of the engine and the presence of that mocking container. By the time I reached my apartment, the initial emotional numbness had worn off, replaced by waves of raw hurt and crushing humiliation crashing over me with increasing intensity. I barely made it through my front door before the tears came. Not delicate, dignified tears, but ugly, guttural, gasping sobs that left me curled on my living room floor, my body shaking, my chest heaving. All those weeks of meticulous planning, the thousands of dollars spent, the desperate excitement and naive hope I'd felt that very morning. All of it crushed by my family's casual disregard, their profound indifference. When my phone rang, I lunged for it, a desperate, irrational hope fluttering in my chest, thinking perhaps someone in my family had finally realized the magnitude of what they'd done, the depth of their cruelty. But it was Leah's name on the screen. "How's the reunion going?" she asked cheerfully, her voice bright and innocent, unaware of the devastation she was wading into. "Did they finally appreciate all your hard work?" I couldn't speak through the sobs that tore through me, my throat constricted. "Audrey, what happened? Are you okay?" When I finally managed to explain, words broken by gasping breaths, Leah's end of the line fell silent, a shocked, empathetic silence that spoke volumes. "I'm coming over," Leah said, her voice firm, resolute. "Don't move. I'll bring wine." 20 minutes later, Leah was at my door, 2 bottles of Merlot clutched in one hand, a fierce, protective expression on her face. She listened patiently, intently, as I recounted every agonizing detail. The perfectly arranged tables, the personalized place settings, the promises from each family member that they would be there. And then, the final, culminating indignity. "And then your mom had the audacity to bring you leftovers." Leah paced my living room, her wine glass in hand, her anger a tangible presence. "Like you're some distant relative they forgot to invite." "She didn't seem to think it was a big deal," I said, scrolling numbly through my phone, my thumb aching. "None of them did." "Check social media," Leah suggested grimly, her eyes narrowing. $10 says they posted about their wonderful family time. She was right, of course. Grace's Instagram was filled with glowing photos from the day, a curated highlights reel of my family gathered around her sparkling backyard pool, bathed in what appeared to be genuine happiness. Everyone was smiling, their faces beaming. The caption, a casual, almost smug declaration, read, "Spontaneous Thompson family reunion at our place. Sometimes the best gatherings are unplanned. Hashtag family time, hashtag blessed." The pictures told the story of a joyful, effortless family event, a narrative meticulously crafted to exclude me. Dad manning the grill, a proud patriarch. Mom arranging flowers on the patio table, the picture of domestic bliss. Kyle playing gleefully with his kids in the pool, the indulgent uncle. Everyone looked happy. No one, not a single one of them, seemed to be missing me at all. Comments under the photos made it worse. A chorus of well-meaning but agonizing praise. "Such a beautiful family. You Thompsons know how to party. Love how close you all are." In one photo, innocently placed, I spotted the cake. A large sheet cake with Thompson Family Reunion 2023 written in cheerful blue icing. They had planned this. This wasn't spontaneous. They had deliberately excluded me from the family gathering I had painstakingly planned and paid for. As we scrolled through more photos, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. My phone rang, startling me. "Mom calling. Are you going to answer it?" Leah asked, her voice laced with a defiant edge. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and put the phone on speaker. "Audrey, honey, are you coming to Grace's? Everyone's asking about you." The casual line made my stomach churn, a wave of nausea washing over me. No one had texted me. No one had called until now, hours later, after the party was clearly winding down. "No, Mom, I'm not coming." My voice was flat, devoid of the emotion that raged within me. I spent the day at the venue I paid for, waiting for my family who never showed up. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Mom said dismissively, her tone light, almost amused. Plans change. Grace's place was more convenient. More convenient than the venue everyone agreed to. I interrupted, something I rarely, almost never, did with my mother, my voice rising slightly. The venue I spent thousands of dollars on? The venue where I waited alone while you all had a party without me. You're blowing this out of proportion. Her voice hardened, an edge creeping into it. No, Mom. For once, I'm acknowledging the actual proportion of the situation. I spent $3,274.56 on a family reunion that no one attended. That's not a small thing. So, this is about money, she said, her voice dripping with accusation. I raised you better than to be so materialistic. This isn't about money, I said, though of course it partially was undeniably. This is about respect, about acknowledging my time and effort, and yes, my financial contribution to this family. I've calculated that I've spent over $60,000 on family expenses in the past 5 years. The silence on the other end of the line was immediate, thick, and deafening. I could practically hear her mind reeling, processing the impossible number. That can't be right, she finally said, her voice faltering. It is right. I'm a financial planner, Mom. I keep records. Well, no one asked you to spend that money. Her voice was still defensive, but a hint of uncertainty had crept in. Actually, you all did, constantly. I countered the years of silent resentment, now finding a voice. And when I suggested sharing costs, the subject was always changed. When I asked for help with the reunion expenses, everyone ignored me. This has been the pattern for years, and it stops now. By sending invoices like we're clients instead of family. Her voice was incredulous, dripping with disdain. The invoices are a boundary, a clear statement that I will no longer be the only one contributing financially to this family. Mom's voice hardened, regaining some of its old, steely resolve. If this is how you feel, perhaps we need some distance. I need to discuss this with your father. I think it's a good idea, I said, my voice steady, almost calm. Take all the time you need. The invoice has my banking details when you're ready to pay your share. After hanging up, I felt shaky but resolute. One down, several more emotionally draining conversations to go. Dad call was next. He took a different, more conciliatory approach. Audrey, honey, your mother is very upset. You know how she gets. Can you just apologize and we'll forget this whole invoice business? There's nothing to apologize for, Dad. I'm setting a boundary. But family doesn't invoice family. He repeated Mom's earlier sentiment, a well-worn mantra. And family doesn't ditch family at a venue they've paid for without even a phone call. I countered, my voice firm. This isn't coming out of nowhere. This is years of being taken advantage of financially. No one's taking advantage of you. He protested weakly, his voice betraying a hint of discomfort. Dad, when was the last time you contributed to a family event? Or Grace? Or Kyle? It's always me paying, always me organizing, and apparently I don't even deserve the courtesy of being included. His long silence told me he knew I was right, that the truth of my words had landed. I didn't know you felt this way, he finally said, his voice quiet, tinged with genuine sadness. I've tried to tell you all many times. No one listened. Let me talk to your mother. We'll figure something out. Grace's call came in while I was still on the phone with Dad. She left another voicemail, her voice shrill with indignation. Mom is in tears because of your ridiculous invoice. Fix this, Audrey. Now. When I called her back, she answered with immediate accusation. What is wrong with you? Invoicing your own sister. What's wrong with me? I repeated, incredulous, a raw edge to my voice. You all held the family reunion at your house without telling me after I spent thousands of dollars on the venue we all agreed to. It was a last-minute decision, she insisted, her voice defensive. My house made more sense logistically. And no one thought to call me? The person who organized and paid for everything. We tried. Grace insisted, her voice rising. You didn't answer. That's a lie, Grace. There are no missed calls or messages on my phone about any change of plans. I checked. Her momentary silence, a sharp intake of breath, confirmed what I already knew. Well, maybe there was a miscommunication. Her voice was weaker now, less defiant. There was no miscommunication. You all deliberately excluded me, and now you're upset that I'm asking you to pay your fair share. I'm not paying this invoice, she said firmly, her voice regaining some of its old stubbornness. It's ridiculous. That's your choice. But going forward, I won't be contributing to any family events without equal financial participation from everyone. That includes your beach vacation you just asked me to help plan. Fine, she snapped, her voice laced with venom. We don't need your money or your spreadsheets or your constant calculations. Some things are more important than dollars and cents, Audrey. Like basic respect and consideration. I asked quietly, my voice cutting through her anger. She hung up abruptly. Kyle was predictably dismissive when I finally reached him. Come on, sis. You can't be serious with this invoice thing. It's hilarious, but Mom's having a meltdown. I'm completely serious, Kyle. Your share of the reunion expenses is $546.18. Yeah, that's not happening. I'm between paychecks right now, and the kids need new soccer gear. The kids didn't need new soccer gear when you bought a $700 gaming console last month, I pointed out, having seen his ubiquitous social media posts. Are you stalking my purchases now? Creepy sis. No, Kyle. I'm simply pointing out that you, like everyone else in this family, always have money for what you want, but never for what you owe. Wow, when did you get so bitter? This isn't like you, Audrey. This is exactly like me. You just never had to face it before because I always gave in. Later that afternoon, I received a chilling text message from Mom. Your father and I are calling a family meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. at our house to discuss your behavior. We expect you to be there. I replied simply, my fingers steady. I'll be there and I'll bring copies of everyone's invoices. By evening, word had spread to the extended family, the news rippling through our network like a shockwave. Some cousins sent confused messages asking what was going on, a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. An uncle, always prone to dramatic pronouncements, suggested I was having some kind of breakdown. But then a beacon of light cut through the storm. Aunt Susan, Mom's sister, who had always been kind to me, understanding even when others were not, called with unexpected news. I just want you to know I've sent you my share for the reunion, she said, her voice warm, firm, unwavering. I wasn't even there, but I want to support what you're doing. I checked my new Thompson Family Fund account, and there was a fresh deposit of $546.18 with the memo, reunion expenses. Sorry this happened to you. Aunt Susan, you didn't have to do that. I felt a lump form in my throat, the people-pleasing response so ingrained I couldn't stop it. I wanted to, she insisted. It's important that you know not everyone in this family thinks what happened was okay. Her support brought tears to my eyes, hot, genuine tears, the first I'd shed since starting this arduous boundary-setting process. Thank you, I whispered, the word barely audible. The family meeting the next evening was exactly as tense as I expected, perhaps even more so. I arrived at my parents' house to find everyone already there, their faces drawn and somber, as if attending a funeral. Mom, in a move that felt calculated to intimidate, had arranged everyone in the living room with an empty chair facing the group like an interrogation setup, a spotlight on my perceived defiance. Audrey, Mom began once I was seated, her voice tight with barely suppressed anger. We're all here because we're concerned about your recent behavior. My behavior? I raised an eyebrow, my voice calm, controlled. Not the behavior of abandoning me at a venue I paid for. We've been over that, Grace interjected, her voice sharp with impatience. It was a miscommunication. It wasn't, I said, a quiet, firm correction, but let's move on. I opened my folder, the rustle of papers loud in the tense silence. I've brought detailed records of family expenses I've covered over the past 5 years. I thought it might be helpful for everyone to see the complete picture. We don't need to see your spreadsheets, Mom said dismissively, waving her hand, her contempt palpable. Actually, I think we do. Dad surprised me by saying, his voice quiet but firm, turning to Mom. If Audrey has been covering this many expenses, we should at least look at the numbers. I handed out the individualized reports I'd prepared, each one a stark, undeniable accounting. I watched as each family member's eyes widened, then narrowed, At their personal total, their face is a mixture of shock and disbelief. "This can't be right," Grace muttered, staring at her sheet, her eyes scanning the figures. $17,328.45. That includes half your rent for 8 months during your divorce, the down payment help for your car, and your children's summer camp fees last year. I said calmly, each item a precise, irrefutable fact, plus your portion of shared family expenses. Kyle was unusually quiet, his usual bravado gone, staring at his own substantial total, a flicker of genuine shock in his eyes. "The point isn't to make anyone feel guilty," I explained, my voice steady, betraying none of the internal trembling. "It's to show why I've reached my breaking point. For years, I've been treated like the family bank, while also being the least appreciated member. The reunion was just the final straw." "So, what do you want?" Mom asked, her voice softer than before, a hint of something resembling genuine curiosity. "For us all to pay you back." "No," I said honestly, meeting her gaze. "I don't expect repayment for past expenses. What I want going forward is equal contribution to family events and expenses, respect for my time and effort, and basic consideration as a family member, not just a financial resource." The room fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in, forcing them to confront an uncomfortable truth they had long ignored. "Is that really how we've made you feel?" Dad asked quietly, his voice laced with regret. "Like an ATM?" "Yes," I said simply, the single word cutting through the silence. "For years." More silence, thick and heavy. "I paid my invoice," Aunt Susan announced from the corner, where she'd been quietly observing, her voice firm, supportive. "It wasn't even my responsibility, but I did it to show Audrey that someone in this family respects her boundaries." Her words seemed to shift something in the room, a subtle but significant realignment. Dad cleared his throat. "I'll pay my share of the reunion expenses," he said, his gaze meeting mine. "And I'm sorry, Audrey. I didn't realize how unbalanced things had become." One by one, reluctantly at first, then with increasing sincerity, family members began to acknowledge the pattern, to recognize the truth of my words. Mom remained resistant the longest, her pride a formidable shield, but by the end of the evening, even she had grudgingly agreed that changes needed to be made, a grudging concession that felt like a monumental victory. I left my parents' house that night feeling cautiously optimistic. Words were one thing. Actions would be another, a difficult path ahead. But for the first time in years, I felt seen by my family. Really seen. The weeks following the family confrontation were strangely quiet, a period of uneasy calm. I didn't call. They didn't call. The family chat group, which usually buzzed with daily messages and endless trivialities, fell silent, a ghostly echo of its former self. It was uncomfortable, a palpable tension in the air, but profoundly necessary, like the stillness after lancing a wound before true healing can begin. True to his word, Dad was the first to deposit money into the Thompson Family Fund account, the exact amount of his invoice with a memo that simply read, "I'm sorry." It was a small gesture, but it meant the world. Mom followed 2 days later, though her transfer came without any message, a silent, grudging acknowledgement. Kyle surprised me by calling a week after the family meeting, his voice awkward, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Hey sis," he began, I don't have the full amount right now, but I set up a payment plan. You'll get $100 a week until it's paid off." "Thank you, Kyle," I said, genuinely touched by his effort, by the sincerity in his voice. "That means a lot." "Yeah, well," he cleared his throat, a nervous habit. "I've been thinking about what you said about always having money for what I want, but not what I owe. And you're not wrong." A hesitation, then, unexpectedly, "I appreciate you acknowledging that. Actually, I was wondering if maybe you could help me set up a budget. Nothing fancy, just I should probably learn how to manage money better." It was the first time in our adult lives that Kyle had ever asked for my professional expertise rather than just my money. "I'd be happy to help you with that." We spent 2 hours on a video call that evening, a surprisingly productive and emotionally vulnerable conversation, going through his expenses, identifying areas to cut back temporarily, and creating a realistic, achievable budget. In the end, I did transfer him some money, but this time it was as a formal loan with a signed agreement and a repayment schedule that he himself suggested. Grace held out the longest, her pride a formidable barrier, maintaining that the invoice was ridiculous and petty. But 3 weeks after the confrontation, a notification from my bank showed a transfer for the full amount. No memo, no call, just the money. It was a silent concession, but a powerful one. Aunt Susan became my most frequent caller during this period of family recalibration, her support a constant comfort. "How are you holding up?" she'd ask regularly. "It's strange," I admitted during one of our calls. "Part of me feels guilty for creating this disruption, but another part feels lighter. That's the weight of unspoken resentment lifting," she said wisely, her voice warm with understanding. "It's always heaviest before you set it down." The real test came with Thanksgiving, the next major family gathering after the reunion debacle. Traditionally, I would have handled everything, buying the monstrous turkey, preparing most of the elaborate sides, bringing the wine, and still somehow being criticized for not making Mom's preferred type of cranberry sauce. This year, I did nothing but respond to Mom's tentative text. "We're thinking of having Thanksgiving at our house this year. Will you come?" "I'd be happy to attend," I replied, a small smile touching my lips. "What would you like me to bring?" The planning unfolded differently than any previous family event, a collaborative effort rather than a silent imposition. Mom created an actual spreadsheet, clearly out of her comfort zone, filled with inconsistent formatting that made me smile. She assigned dishes and items to each family member, a true division of labor. Dad called to coordinate who would bring which wines, stepping into a role he'd never occupied before. Kyle volunteered to handle desserts, something he'd never done. When I arrived at my parents' house on Thanksgiving Day, the atmosphere was tentative but warm. Mom had prepared the turkey, its golden skin gleaming. Dad had set up a beautiful table. Grace had brought several side dishes, and Kyle arrived with an impressive array of pies from a local bakery. "Happy Thanksgiving," Mom said as she opened the door, accepting the bottle of wine and homemade bread I'd brought. There was an unfamiliar hesitancy in her manner, as if she was still learning how to interact with this new version of me who had boundaries, a respectful distance. Dinner was initially awkward, conversation careful and polite in a way it had never been before. But as the wine flowed and the food was enjoyed, the tension gradually eased. No one mentioned invoices or money directly, but there was a new undercurrent of awareness, a consciousness about contribution and appreciation that had never existed before. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside. "The bread was delicious," she said, and then, after a pause, "and thank you for the lovely wine. It paired perfectly with the turkey." It was such a small thing, a simple acknowledgement of my contribution, but it nearly brought tears to my eyes. "You're welcome, Mom. The turkey was perfect." She nodded, and I could see her struggling with something, choosing her words carefully. "Finally, I've been thinking about what you said about feeling unappreciated. I didn't mean to make you feel that way." It wasn't quite an apology, not in so many words, but for my mother, it was significant, a monumental shift. "I know, Mom. You've always been so capable, so independent. I guess we all just got used to relying on that. There's a difference between being reliable and being taken for granted." She nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand that." The real surprise came at Christmas. Traditionally, I would have organized and largely funded the entire family celebration, a burdensome ritual. This year, Dad took the lead, sending out a comprehensive email to everyone. "For Christmas this year, we're trying something new. Everyone contributes equally. I've calculated the total expenses and divided by the number of adults. Each person's share is $285. Please send your contribution by December 15th. When I read the email, I actually laughed out loud from the sheer surprise of it. My father, who had never organized a family financial contribution in his life, was now creating payment deadlines. The Christmas gathering was the most equitable family event I could remember. Everyone had contributed financially. Everyone had helped with preparations. And for once, I was able to simply enjoy being with my family, unburdened by the crushing weight of responsibility for everything. Grace approached me as I was helping clean up after dinner, her expression thoughtful. The invoices were still petty, she said, but there was no real heat in her words, no bitterness. Maybe, I conceded, a small smile playing on my lips, but they worked. She was quiet for a moment, then, hesitantly, I didn't realize how much you were covering for everyone. I knew you paid for things, but seeing the total, it was eye-opening. That's all I wanted, I said, my gaze softening. For everyone to see the reality of the situation. For what it's worth, she said, focusing intently on drying a plate, avoiding my gaze, I'm sorry about the reunion. It was thoughtless. Coming from Grace, who rarely, if ever, admitted fault, this was monumental, a true sign of change. Thank you. That means a lot. The most profound change came in January when Kyle called me in genuine crisis. He'd been laid off from his job and was panicking about making rent. I hate to ask, he began, his voice laced with shame, especially after everything with the invoices, but I'm really stuck. Would you be able to loan me some money for rent? Just until I find a new job. I promise I'll pay you back. In the past, I would have immediately transferred the money. No questions asked, no conditions, no expectations. This time, I took a different approach, one that balanced support with responsibility. I'd be happy to help you create a budget to get through this tight period. And if you still need financial assistance after we've explored all options, we can discuss a formal loan agreement with repayment terms. How does that sound? There was a pause, and I braced myself for anger or accusation, the familiar backlash. Instead, Kyle said, that's actually really helpful. I'd appreciate that. We spent 2 hours on a video call that evening, going through his expenses, identifying areas to cut back temporarily, and creating a realistic budget. In the end, I did transfer him some money, but as a formal loan with a signed agreement and a repayment schedule that he suggested himself. When my birthday came around in March, I received a card from my parents containing a check. The memo line read, "For the Colorado Christmas vacation you paid for last year. Long overdue." It wasn't the full amount, not even close. But the acknowledgement, the simple act of recognizing my past contribution, meant everything. By the time the next annual family reunion approached in June, exactly 1 year after the devastating leftovers incident, the family dynamic had truly transformed. Planning happened collaboratively in the group chat, with everyone making suggestions and clearly stating what they could contribute both in effort and financially. We held the reunion at a public park, a much less expensive option than Willow Creek Garden Resort, a testament to our newfound financial awareness. Everyone brought food. Everyone helped set up. Everyone contributed their share to the cost of the pavilion rental. As we sat together at the picnic tables, sharing food and laughter, I looked around at my family and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Simply happy to be with them, unburdened by resentment or expectation. Mom sat down beside me, watching as Kyle played frisbee with his kids, and Grace helped Dad set up the grill. "This is nice," she said simply, her voice soft, filled with a quiet contentment. "It is," I agreed, a genuine smile on my face. "I don't think I've properly thanked you," she said after a moment, her gaze meeting mine. "For what?" "For forcing us to change. It wasn't comfortable, and I certainly didn't like your methods." She smiled slightly, a rare, genuine smile that softened her words, but our family needed it. I needed it. It's made us better. As I looked around at my family, imperfect, still learning, but trying, truly trying, I realized that the boundaries I'd set hadn't pushed them away as I'd feared. Instead, they'd created space for more authentic, respectful relationships to grow. Later, as we were packing up, Aunt Susan hugged me goodbye, her embrace warm and comforting. "Proud of you," she whispered. Grandma Eleanor would be too. Standing in that park, surrounded by family members who were finally seeing me, really seeing me, not as an ATM or a convenience, but as a valued individual, I knew she was right. The invoices that had seemed so dramatic, so potentially family-destroying, had actually been the first step toward healing, a painful but necessary surgery. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately save our most important relationships. It's not always about the money. It's about the respect, the recognition, the reciprocity that makes family truly family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did it change your relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's often the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for the people who matter most. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you courage if you're facing similar challenges in your own.